Midday on Angel's Landing, the rock does not feel like rock. It feels like a stove somebody forgot to turn off. Folks call me Ranger Cole Hargrove. 31 summers in places like Death Valley, the Grand Canyon, and Zion taught me this much. I have carried out more bodies than I have written tickets. That day, it was 112 degrees. The sandstone was throwing heat back into your face. The smart tourists had already gone quiet, searching for shade, rationing water, turning around. Then two men came up shirtless, built like they lived under a squat rack. No packs, no bottles, no hats, just muscle, sweat, and competition. They treated Angel's Landing like a gym challenge, but the chains did not care what they could bench, and by sundown, only one of them was coming down under his own power. Before I tell you what happened on the spine, you need to understand why Angel's Landing kills people who think the hard part is climbing. I have watched strong people make weak decisions for 3 decades, and the pattern is almost always the same. They do not arrive looking scared. They arrive laughing. They arrive comparing times, checking their calves, saying things like, "We will be fine." By the time somebody keys a radio and asks for a litter team, the mistake is usually hours old. Angel's Landing has a reputation because of the chains. That last narrow spine gets the photos, the gasps, the warning signs. But on a day that hot, the real danger starts lower, where the trail is still wide enough to feel safe. Heat works quietly. First, it steals your sweat faster than you can replace it. Then it thickens your blood, clouds your decisions, and turns small pride into a plan you cannot judge anymore. This story is not about being afraid of nature. It is about knowing the difference between gym fitness, trail fitness, and desert judgment. Because the desert does not punish weakness. It punishes confidence that refuses to listen. The first mistake happened before either of them put a boot on the trail. They came in around midday, when the canyon walls were throwing heat back like an oven door. Two men, both built, both shirtless. Gym shorts, running shoes, phones in their hands. No packs, no bottles clipped to a belt, no snacks, no electrolytes, no extra layer. Nothing that said they planned to be outside for more than an hour. They were laughing when they passed the trailhead. One of them pointed at another hiker's backpack and said something about people bringing their whole apartment. The other flexed for a photo with the cliffs behind him. That is the part people miss. They did not look unprepared. They looked confident. But at 112 degrees, muscle is not protection. It is weight your heart has to cool. It is more tissue demanding blood, more heat being generated, more fluid leaving your body before the hard part even begins. And no pack tells you the whole story. No pack means no water when the switchbacks start cooking. No electrolytes when sweat stops doing its job. No shade option when the sun pins you to pale sandstone. No margin when one bad decision becomes 3. Every step upward was a commitment, not just to the summit, but to a problem they had no tools to solve. The trail was not challenging their strength yet. It was challenging their judgment. And then the second trap appeared. Neither man wanted to be the one who said, "We should turn around." Not in front of the other. Not after the jokes. Not after walking past older hikers with trekking poles and full packs. So the opponent changed. It was not Angel's Landing anymore. It was embarrassment. So I did what rangers do when pride walks past in gym shorts. I tried to make the facts louder than the ego. I stepped in before they reached the first real climb and asked one question. "Where is your water?" They laughed like I had asked where their parachutes were. One of them tapped his chest and said they were good. The other said they trained legs, did stairs, did brutal sessions in the gym, and this was just a hike with a view. That is gym logic. In a gym, the room is controlled. The floor is flat. The set ends. You can drop the weight, sit down, drink, cool off, try again. Angel's Landing does not work like that. After Walter's Wiggles and Scout Lookout, the trail narrows into a sandstone spine. Chains are bolted into the rock. On one side, the drop is hundreds of feet. On the other, more air. People move both directions through the same tight spaces, so you wait, squeeze past, reach, step, pause, and trust your balance while strangers do the same inches away. That section does not care what you can bench. It cares whether your fingers still close when sweat makes the chains slick. It cares whether your calves stop shaking after the climb. It cares whether your brain can make calm decisions while your pulse is high and the sun is cooking the rock under your shoes. Heat changes the problem. Dehydration does not just make you thirsty. It thickens the fight. Your heart works harder. Your skin needs blood to cool you. Your muscles need blood to move you. Your brain needs blood to think clearly. Everybody wants the danger to be dramatic. A slip, a scream, a fall. But before that, there is a quieter failure. A hand that does not grip as fast. A foot placed without patience, a man too proud to admit the trail has stopped being a workout and started being a trap. I told them exactly that, not as a challenge, not as an insult, as information. They heard every word I said, which is worse than not hearing it at all. For the first stretch, they looked right. That is the part people miss. They were not stumbling out of the gate. They were not gasping at the first switchback. They moved like strong men usually move, shoulders back, shirts already darkening, calves firing with every step. They passed families. They passed older hikers. They passed people who had started earlier and packed better, and because they were still winning the visible part, they ignored the invisible part. The sun was already doing math. Every step made heat. Every pound of muscle helped make more of it. Big bodies are engines, and engines run hot. In an air-conditioned gym, that heat leaves through fans, rest breaks, cold bottles, and sweat that actually gets replaced. On that trail, sweat was just leaving. At first, dehydration feels like effort. Nothing dramatic. The mouth gets sticky. The shirt clings. The pulse sits a little higher than it should. Then the body starts protecting what is left. Less fluid in the bloodstream means the heart has to push harder to move the same amount of blood. That matters because blood has two jobs at once. It has to feed the working muscles, and it has to carry heat to the skin so the body can cool itself. When water is not coming back in, that system gets crowded. Cooling becomes less efficient. The heart rate climbs. The brain starts getting a worse deal. Not stupidity, dulling. Small choices get rougher around the edges. You wait too long to stop. You read fatigue as weakness. You treat thirst like background noise because the summit is still up there, and people are still watching. That is the cruel irony. The same size that made them look prepared was making the climb more expensive, more mass to move, more heat to dump, more confidence to defend. Cole had seen that canyon humble every type of person: runners, tourists, weekend warriors, men who looked carved out of stone. The rock did not care. The canyon only asked one question: can your body dump heat faster than it makes it? And with no water, their answer was changing long before their faces did. By the time the trail narrowed, their bodies were already negotiating terms they did not know they had agreed to. Then the chains appeared, not as a symbol, not as a photo spot, as hot metal bolted into sandstone, running along a spine of rock where the trail stopped feeling like a trail. Under their shoes, the sandstone had been polished by thousands of feet. It was not smooth like tile, but it was worn enough that every step needed attention. The sun sat high. The rock threw heat back up. The chain warmed in the hand, and now people were bunching up. Someone ahead moved slowly. Someone coming down needed space. A backpack scraped against the wall. A shoe paused on a narrow ledge. For the first time, strength did not make the problem smaller, because there was nowhere to use it. You could not stride through this section. You had to wait. Grip, step, shift, let go, grip again. That is when one of them started feeling it in his forearms. At a gym, a forearm cramp is annoying. You drop the dumbbell, you shake out your hand, you laugh because your fingers will not open right. Here, fingers were part of the safety system. A cramp could lock the hand closed, or make it release too soon. Either one was bad. The chain was not a workout tool. It was balance, direction, and sometimes the only thing between a body and open air. Below them, the drop was no longer an idea. It was there. 1,500 feet of space beside the boot, enough distance for the brain to stop pretending this was just another hard climb. Heat stress makes that worse. It does not only drain muscles, it slows coordination. It blurs timing. It turns simple choices into delayed reactions. So when the stronger man pushed forward, the weaker one had a choice he could not admit was a choice. Say he was in trouble, or keep moving. Their confidence had trapped them on a section where turning around meant facing the same exposure in reverse. The desert does not punish weakness. It punishes bad judgment dressed up as confidence. Then came the moment every ranger hates because it lasts less than a second and explains everything that came before it. His hand did not fail all at once. First, it tightened around the chain and would not relax cleanly. The fingers curled hard, then fluttered. His thumb searched for pressure. His wrist bent at an ugly angle against the metal, trying to turn a bad grip into a safe one. Then his breathing changed. Not deep effort breathing, not the kind you hear after a hard set. It became short and torn, like his chest could not decide whether to pull in air or brace for impact. Each inhale came late. Each step arrived with a delay. His world narrowed to three things: chain, boot, rock. That is what heat and dehydration do at height and exposure. They do not announce themselves like a villain. They steal the tiny adjustments that keep a person upright. A shoulder leans too far. A foot lands a few inches off. A hand reaches before the other hand is ready. On flat ground, that would be nothing. A stumble, a curse, a laugh afterward. On Angel's Landing, there was no extra room for the mistake. He shifted on the spine at the wrong moment. The chain moved through his hand instead of becoming solid beneath it. He tried to recover, but the grip did not come back. There was no speech, no long struggle, no dramatic pause where the mountain waited for a decision. The drop took over. For a second, the line of hikers froze in place. The scrape of shoes stopped. The voices stopped. Even the people who had not seen it understood from the sudden silence that something irreversible had happened. His friend was still on the route, still holding the chain, still standing in the heat with the whole trail changed beneath him. Because the fall was not born in that 1 second. It was built earlier, in every ignored warning, every dry mile, every chance to turn around that pride made smaller. But the mountain was not finished with the man who stayed on the chain. He did not climb down after the fall. He stayed there, one hand on the chain, feet planted on hot sandstone, body locked in that terrible space where moving feels dangerous, but staying there is slowly making you worse. By then, his confidence was gone. Not reduced, gone. This is the part people miss about panic on exposed trails. The body can still have muscle. The legs can still be strong. The shoulders can still look like they belong in a gym mirror. But the brain is now running on heat, thirst, shock, and shame. That combination breaks judgment. A prepared hiker feels the day turning bad and buys options early. Stop in shade, drink, eat, turn around while turning around is still easy. There is no medal waiting at the top for needing a rescue on the way down. An unprepared hiker learns the cruel version. Descent is not automatic. Going down Angel's Landing still requires balance, timing, grip, and a brain calm enough to choose the next foothold. His brain was not calm anymore, so the rescue became slow. Rangers could not just rush him, clip a rope, and bark orders. They had to talk him into one movement at a time. Breathe. Shift your foot. Keep 3 points of contact. Look at the rock, not the drop. That is rescue work nobody puts on a postcard. Not heroic music. Patience. Because nobody has ever flexed their way out of heat illness, and the chains are not impressed by lat spreads. And that is where people usually ask me the wrong question. The wrong question is Angel's Landing too dangerous? That sounds reasonable, but it lets the real problem hide behind the cliff. Angel's Landing is not a trap. It tells you what it is before you ever touch the chains. The signs are blunt, the exposure is visible, the heat is physical. The trail does not pretend to be easy. The villain was not the sandstone ridge. It was the story these men brought onto it. A story that said gym strength meant trail readiness, that a strong body could negotiate with dehydration, that confidence could substitute for water, pacing, shade, and judgment. But heat does not care what you bench. Altitude does not care how lean you are. A narrow spine of rock does not care how you look walking into the park. That is what makes this story bigger than one rescue. The desert does not punish weakness. It punishes bad judgment dressed up as confidence. Angel's Landing was not evil that day. It was honest. So here is the answer to the question I left hanging at the start. It was not just the chains. The chains only revealed what the heat had already taken. By the time they reached that exposed rock, the damage was moving through their bodies. No water, no packs, a midday start, extreme heat, ignored warnings, cramps, confusion, and hands that could no longer be trusted. That is the preventable chain, not steel bolted into sandstone. Choices. One man fell. One man survived because rescuers talked him down step by step, when his strength was no longer the thing keeping him alive. So Cole's lesson is blunt. If you want to impress a canyon, turn around early, carry water, know the forecast, leave your ego in the parking lot. Before any exposed hike, check the official park conditions, and tell me in the comments, have you ever turned back from a trail and been glad you did? Thanks for watching.